Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 28th of April 2020, and these are the articles we'll be dealing today. As mentioned by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who said that we are facing a twin challenge, one of COVID-19 and the other one is about the economic front, how to ensure that economic revival takes place in our economy. So our two of the articles deal with those particular aspects. The first article for the day is written by Urjit Patel, our ex-RBI governor, and he writes an article in the context of the MPC framework or the monetary policy framework. This is taken from the Indian Express and it is titled Costly to Bypass MPC Framework. After the 2008 global financial crisis, most of the economies pumped in a lot of money, just like how the governments are considering putting money into the economy by printing them. So even India went for a fiscal stimulus strategy by borrowing from different sources. Now what happened as a result was, firstly, inflation went into uncontrolled measures. It has touched double digit figures in 2013. The fiscal deficit targets have been breached a lot of times, and the scenario was very bad, especially when the Federal Reserve rates by US have been reversed in 2013. So since 2008, the interest rates have remained near zero levels in most of the advanced economies to encourage lending and therefore support the different economies as well as businesses. So by 2014-2015, we have seen the reversal in this trend. So most of the investors after 2014 and 15 have found that it is much safer to invest in the government securities of a well-rated country like US and removed their investments from our country, and this led to a flight in capital. In 2013, our external sector, namely balance of payments or exchange rate, we had an exchange rate of nearly 68 to 70 rupees during this phase. Previous to that period, the dollar was ranging somewhere between 55 to 60 rupees. But due to the external sector vulnerability, when I mean by external sector, we are talking about terms like balance of payments, FDI, investments in our country, saving rates, credit ratings. How all these parameters affect our economy constitutes the study in external sector. So either on the investment front or our exports, we were faring pretty badly in 2013, except on one parameter, that is inflation. We have improved significantly on our inflation and maintained that inflation within the manageable rates thanks to the global oil prices as well as the controlled food inflation. So this has been the duty of Monetary Policy Committee and the success of the Monetary Policy Committee alone. So this Monetary Policy Committee had a target of 4 plus or minus 2% of inflation. The index that we are looking at is CPI. One of the major reasons for success of the monetary policy, which is often hailed as the landmark structural reform by many credit rating agencies, is the transparency and accountability exhibited by the committee. The next point that they emphasized upon is ensuring that the reasonable costs are incurred while borrowing. So these 2 points were enough to ensure the credibility of the Monetary Policy Committee and therefore sound macroeconomic management. Now Urjit Patel, the ex-RBI governor, feels that the measures taken by RBI are sort of undermining the policies that MPC took, and they are reducing the credibility of RBI as a whole. The reason being, RBI has taken a lot of steps like Operation Twist, long-term repo operations and targeted long-term operations that directed funds to be given to the non-banking financial institutions who are suffering from liquidity crunch. Now, when financial sectors, companies are facing credit crunch and when they don't have enough liquidity, when their balance sheets are stressed, there shall be no lending. And instead of realizing this point, RBI has actually ensured that the liquidity supply in the economy has been doubled now. The outcome quoted by RBI is transmission of monetary policy. But what happened was, with the excess liquidity, we are trying to monetize government's expenditure. So this is as good as deficit financing, which was discouraged long back ago by various governments and even previous RBI governors as well. This is not a prudential macroeconomic activity that is being taken up by RBI. Firstly, the repo rate was maintained at 4.4% alone, and we have injected more liquidity. When the interest rates are as low as 4.4%, there is no lending activity, and despite this fact, we have ensured, we as in RBI has ensured that the liquidity in the economy has been doubled. So this is not a wise move given the circumstances or even the extraordinary circumstances of COVID-19. One of the biggest concerns raised by Ujit Patel is regarding the sidelining of Monetary Policy Committee, which has the mandate to set only the repo rate but not reverse repo rate. So, Monetary Policy Committee, which was originally formed to maintain inflation rates at 4%, which is very crucial for even external sector liabilities, has been sidelined, and RBI has been now deciding reverse repo rate. So the concept of reverse repo rate is very important because this is the interest rate that banks get for keeping their excessive liquidity with RBI. Now if the reverse repo rate is less than the repo rate, it will obviously be unsustainable for banks to put the money with RBI. But the risk averse banks are ensuring that even if it is low interest of 3.75%, they would rather keep that money with RBI rather than lending it to someone else because of the risk of non-performing assets in the uncertain economy that we are witnessing right now. So in this scenario, both RBI and Monetary Policy Committee, which also consists of government appointed functionaries, should work in tandem to achieve the economic objective of growth. If we go with the present framework, not only are we undermining the monetary policy framework, but we are also ensuring that there shall be no economic growth because banks will always play the safe game of going for lower interest. That is the gist of this article. The next article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled A Policy Roadmap to Tackle COVID-19. So what are the priorities and the steps needed to be taken to ensure that we are out of this COVID-19 crisis? The author of this article opines that the first emphasis should obviously be on reducing the mortality rate. The next concern is of economic revival. Now, the impact of COVID-19 and economics falls differently on different segments of population. If you take the quality of life for the older generation, they might see some deterioration in their quality of life. So there will be reduction in life expectancy of the older population, but if you take the younger population, probably the life expectancy will not come down because if you look at the data, 80% of the cases in India are asymptomatic and they do not cause any sort of mortality in younger generation. But the kind of mental stress that COVID-19 puts on the younger generation, placing their future in the uncertainty, is one of the most worrying factor for our population. It is not just about reducing the mortality rates in the present times, but the government is faced with the challenge of reviving the economy and opportunities for its younger population. After all, this is an opportunity to think about sustainable development goals. At the same time, we have to ensure that the aspirations of the young generation are in tune with that of the sustainable development goals and therefore nation's development. The third point that the author raises is regarding the periodic lockdowns. Now, lockdowns are based on abstract epidemiological models which do not take into consideration the impact of this sort of lockdowns on socio-economic life of people. Yes, we do not have a certain framework within which we should impose this lockdown given the extraordinary circumstances that we are in. But you have to consider a plan that will eventually bring us out of this lockdown. Obviously, we cannot unlock this lockdown suddenly and expect things to be normal. So there should be a specific strategy which ensures continuity of businesses and at least ensure minimum incomes to all the businesses. That is one way that we can come out of this COVID-19 crisis. So what should be the focus of the government on each of these fronts? The author first talks about the impact of healthcare and infrastructure on the population. If you take the case of Kerala, it has been very successful and so far it has had only 3 deaths and the recovery rate has been astonishing 50%. The reason for this success is because of the formidable healthcare infrastructure that has always been the emphasis in that state. So elsewhere as well, we have to learn from the lessons taught by Kerala. If you take a look at the present spike in cases, you understand that despite this lockdown, the infection spreading has not been contained. So the only way we can come out of this crisis is by buying the time through quarantines and lockdowns and using that time to come up with healthcare infrastructure. The government has been doing certain steps like converting the railway coaches into containment zones, but they are not enough. We have to do more. We have to invest in healthcare infrastructure that is capable enough to handle different segments of population in different geographical regions. You shouldn't be traveling from one place to another to access healthcare facilities. I know it is a very daunting task, but this is the situational demand that we have to adhere to. Second thing is, in order to contain the spike of diseases, eventually we have to bet on herd immunity concept according to the author. What is this herd immunity? It is the immunity that the population attains after a certain percentage of the population gets infected and develops antibodies within their body. So the concept is, if enough people get this resistance, they will stop the spread of this disease. So either we have to bet on this herd immunity or we have to develop vaccine for containing COVID. This is very far away from now. So we have to bet on herd immunity. But for that to happen, we also need to take into account the percentage of people who might need hospitalization, and therefore healthcare is very crucial. At the same time, just imposing a lockdown will not be sufficient because lockdown can only buy us time. What we have to do right now is increase our rate of testing, participate in pool testing, and therefore we can even use sewage samples as a point of detecting infections in a particular area and drive those people who are probably infected into quarantine centers and healthcare systems. At the same time, we also have to ensure that the human resources, we can build as many hospitals as possible in short amount of time, but we cannot create human resources or medical workers who are handling this crisis at the cost of their personal safety. So we have to ensure human resources are safe and sound, and the most important aspect is human resources and medical healthcare workers. One more objective of the present lockdown is to spread the time in which this disease spreads. So the time spread is contained in such a way that we are hoping that we'll ramp up our healthcare infrastructure. But even in the present scenario, our hospitals and healthcare centers are overwhelmed with the number of cases flowing. Imagine a scenario where lockdown restrictions are lifted. The second point that the author tries to bring after the healthcare is investments into R&D and vaccine development. So the way the author looks at this, it is a kind of an investment into the happy future of our country. So they will enjoy a healthy societal return as well. So we must focus, even if the contributions are low, to ensure that the International Fund for Vaccine Development has contributions from our country as well. And not just in this, the interdependence of economy with the present prevailing situation should be understood even by the private sector as well. And the private sector must also be made a partner in this developmental narrative. We are at one of the most crucial junctions of our history, and how we deal with this COVID-19 defines our future. The next step that the author is trying to put forward is people to people engagement and cooperation between individuals. This must happen at local level and as well as international level. Now, we have to recognize the fact that across the world, the infection rates have increased. So, it is not just a question of one individual versus another individual. We have to focus on local efforts. There has always been emphasis on the involvement and empowerment of local governments, and there is no better opportunity to understand the importance of local governments than COVID-19. If only the local governments were very strong enough to handle these cases and prevent the spread, if we had formidable structures of governance to ensure that COVID-19 patients are isolated promptly during the hours of crisis initially, we could have avoided this spread. Therefore, we have to consider this as a lesson and move forward, and especially with respect to international engagement, the post COVID-19 world should neither take the business versus life opportunity, or we should not even look at politics as one country was another. This COVID-19 is a strange reminder for us that we are all fighting the same villain, or we are all fighting the same war. This is a war that is being fought for survival of humanity. So, these steps can be considered for handling the COVID-19 crisis. That is the gist of this article. A very good article and very useful for interview candidates as well.